Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Mary Ann Hensley. I'm the Vice President of Media Operations here at FreightWaves, and we're excited to present today's webinar in partnership with Drivewyze. Today, we're going to be discussing the benefits of connected truck technology and the ways that local, state, and federal governments are preparing to utilize the technology for enhanced safety and performance. We'll be hearing from Brian Mofford, Vice President of Government Experience with Intelligent Imaging Systems, as well as Charles Buffone, who is the Director of Product Management for Drivewyze. We'll also be having a live Q&A with our speakers following the presentation. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, if you have any issues during the webinar, please feel free to reach out to our team via the chat function in your Zoom control panel. And if you have questions that you would like to ask our presenters, please enter those through the Q&A button in your control panel, and we'll answer as many of those as we have time for during the live audience Q&A following the speaker presentation. At this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brian and Charles. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Marianne. As Marianne mentioned, my name is Brian Mofford, and with me is Charles Buffone. We are representing two different companies, actually, Intelligent Imaging Systems and Drivewyze. Over the last 16 years, Intelligent Imaging Systems has developed and delivered a suite of integrated technologies to government agencies involved in transportation, freight planning, and public safety. And as we'll talk about today, these technologies have laid the foundation for parts of the modern connected truck ecosystems. And as a trusted advisor to these agencies, we continue to have conversations with them on the future of these technologies and the role they play in the connected vehicle space. In my role, I focus on ensuring our products and services are addressing the needs and requirements of our agency partners, and I'll let Charles introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Charles Buffone. I'm the Director of Product at Drivewyze. Share a little bit about Drivewyze for some of you folks who may or may not know us. Drivewyze is a SaaS-based software company providing in-cab software connected technologies. In particular, leveraging our connected roadside technologies that Brian alluded to. Our customers are typically commercial over-the-road carriers of all sizes. Our technology and channel partners are most typically providers of ELD solutions, often full fleet solutions. Our approach is to tightly integrate with in-cab technology partners, deliver those solutions in areas of fleet safety and efficiency. And for those who may not know, our flagship product was Drivewyze Preclear. Drivewyze Preclear is a way station bypass application. So together, the two parts of the whole, Intelligent Imaging Systems and Drivewyze, kind of informs our vision of a connected truck and how we participate in that, connecting in-cab and roadside technologies.
So we are not autonomous truck experts or platooning experts or experts on some of the other things that may immediately come to mind when you think of the words connected truck. But we do have a unique perspective about how a truck communicates with the larger transportation network, and in turn, how that network communicates back to the vehicle. So we'll show you some examples today how our two companies are combining our solutions to connect both the roadside and the truck.
Yeah, so just briefly again, over the past 7 years, Drivewyze has grown the SaaS-based part of our business and connected that to the IIS roadside technology. What we're going to do over the course of this webinar is kind of talk to you a little bit about the foundations of what that means as far as for us. Briefly present our current network, our connected truck network, some thoughts and considerations on open systems and how they play a part in our future.
So when we're developing new products or services for our agency partners, we try to address problems in one or more of these areas within the transportation network. These are the four main pillars most of our agency partners have told us they are looking at making an impact in. So safety, not only driver and vehicle compliance with regulations, and of course its impact on public safety, but initiatives that improve driver safety, like messaging drivers of changing road conditions, initiatives that protect say roadside workers in construction zones or emergency responders on the side of the road, or even securing the infrastructure itself, such as reducing bridge hits or reducing truck traffic through non-trucking routes. Efficiency, so reducing congestion, minimizing delays, initiatives that help keep trucks moving. Reliability, what can they do to make sure travel times are reliable and consistent, which of course are important for logistics and routing. But also is the information transmitted through, say, traveler information systems and dynamic road signs accurate, timing, and meaningful? And lastly, mobility. Are there enough options with the current infrastructure to move freight, particularly during, say, road closures or construction? And how are agencies getting traveler information about real-time alternatives to dispatchers and drivers?
As I previously mentioned, our flagship product was Waystation Bypass. Waystation Bypass covers both safety and efficiency. This past summer, on our connected truck platform, we launched a new product called Drivewyze Safety Notifications. This product is directly targeted as a safety solution. Product leverages our existing connected truck platform. That is, it's built on the exact same technology that we built our Waystation Bypass product on. This product itself provides in-cab driver warnings, risk areas similar to external road signs. Providing the road signs, these road signs in cab, though, provides a few different benefits. So when we first approached this, we worked with both our fleet customers and our agency partners, and we talked about how does current infrastructure alert drivers to unsafe risk areas, and then we talked through some of the issues with that. We conducted a pilot over 2 years with one of our large fleet customers and several agencies, and we focused on rollover zones. So these are high-risk areas in which rollover zones occur. What we found is by introducing the notifications in cab, we reduced overspeeding events in these areas by about 17%. The change in driver behavior was not only immediate, but it was persistent. That means it lasted in the long term. So like I said, we studied for about 2 years. So there are long-term effects to notifying drivers in cab versus using physical external infrastructure. The road signs, now that you've got them placed in cab, you can basically alert drivers anywhere for any particular reason, basically creating virtual notifications in cab. Since the launch of, so we first launched with rollover notifications. Since we launched this summer, we've been able to add other notifications using the exact same kind of process where it's consultative with fleet technology partners and the government agencies. And basically, we've been able to add things like low bridge alerts, corridors, so mountain corridors, steep grade corridors, and we have several other ones that are upcoming. The mountain corridors one was pretty interesting. That was a response to one of the states, one of the mountain states that had a very specific incident occur. And then from that incident, we were able to quite quickly respond and put notifications in cab throughout basically a mountain corridor. So it's not like a specific zone, but it's a chain of notifications across a corridor. This notifies drivers of the steep grades. In particular, the problems they had were new drivers, so drivers not used to mountain driving, and drivers in one particular case who couldn't actually read English signs. So our in-cab notifications are also multilingual. So from the examples above, a core element of providing safety notifications is that it's part of an adaptive platform connected to an in-cab solution driven by cloud and roadside agents. So we continue to evolve the platform and deal with a number of issues. One of the issues that you can see on the right is dynamic messaging. The example here is the example of construction on an interstate or a highway somewhere. So often a 60, 100, 150 mile segment will be marked off for construction. There'll be some physical infrastructure there, but the road crew is only working on a 2 mile segment at a time. What we've done with Arizona is we've started a pilot project where we're communicating real-time working locations with real-time speed alerts in those locations. So across the entire 60 or 100 and 150 mile segment, the safety concerns are different than in the 1 or 2 mile segment where equipment's being operated. So the platform that I've kind of alluded to, that we talk about, like our flagship product, Drivewyze Pre-Clear, was our first connected truck application and taught us a lot about what we needed. Our platform is real-time, location-based, always-on, cloud and roadside connected technology. So what do we mean when we say always on? What we mean is that the application is on from the time the driver logs in till the driver logs out. And it's regardless of any other productivity or entertainment applications that a driver may be using anywhere throughout their driving day. It's location-based and it is connected to the roadside. The in-cab technology is made available to partners as an SDK. So we've taken our technology, we've produced it, and we don't just use the word platform, it is a platform, and it's provided as a technology solution that allows for tight, seamless integration, allowing it to adapt easily to the changing needs. Different partners take different approaches to providing their platforms to the fleet and then ultimately to the driver. And we want to make sure that in all of those situations, that the driver ultimately, who's charged with, ultimately being the real-time safe driver, gets the best integration and alerts possible.
So with the move to electronic logs over the last couple of years, it really has opened up opportunities to streamline some of the current inspection processes for commercial vehicles at weigh stations. Cbsl Level 3 inspection, which is a driver credential and administrative inspection, requires an officer to greet the driver, to examine certain aspects of the driver, such as the driver license, medical certificates, duty status, hours of service, and a number of other items. These details need to be added to the inspection report by the officer before being submitted. So the entire process today can take about 20 minutes. What we found is by pre-populating the inspection report for the officer with the appropriate data elements, including the driver's log, we can reduce the time to complete an inspection for the officer down to about 10 minutes. So this not only saves time for both the officer and the driver, but it can also reduce data entry errors that might happen from the manual entry of information. Beyond that, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance has recently introduced a new Level 8 inspection. This inspection level is intended to be conducted electronically and transmitted wirelessly, and is the first time it's intended to be done while the vehicle is in motion without direct interaction from an inspection officer, all while still rewarding the fleet with credit towards their safety rating. So we are working closely with our agency partners in developing field trials for both of these initiatives, as well as preparing for future inspection levels that may be introduced as vehicles become more and more autonomous. Now, if you are not participating in some of these programs today, where you're voluntarily sharing information and data with the transportation network from your vehicles, you may not think your truck is connected. However, there are numerous roadside monitoring technologies deployed today that are still pulling information off of your vehicle. So camera systems are used to capture and decode license plates and US DOT numbers. Some capture and verify displayed hazmat placards or CVSA inspection stickers. Sensors in the road capture vehicle weight or can detect tire anomalies. Thermal imaging can detect potential brake or bearing issues. So transportation agencies use some of this information today to help paint a picture of vehicle and truck traffic on their roadways, or public safety agencies can use these for compliance. So these sensors need to be functioning regularly, they need to be accurate, and they have to ensure that they are not negatively impacting truck traffic on the roadways today. And of course, the data from these sensors need to be accurate and reliable when being used for planning purposes. So transportation departments today use a number of different sensors that help them calculate things like their truck travel time reliability index. There are a number of companies that can capture real-time road conditions today, such as average speed or identify delays or predict travel times. And you see this when you use apps like Google Maps or Waze. But the information off of commercial vehicles can really provide some unique insight when you're able to accurately identify that it is a commercial truck, and then when you can identify the same vehicle at multiple points throughout the road system. And when you start to supplement that with origin and destination or load details, transportation departments can then start to make some informed decisions on how or where they can make some changes that will have a real impact on freight movement on their network. Here's another example of a truck being connected to a connected truck infrastructure, whether they know it or not. We've worked with a number of states in deploying truck parking management systems today using sensors at the entries of parking facilities and within the parking cells themselves to transmit real-time parking availability data, which can be displayed on variable message boards at Roadside or transmitted to advanced traveler information systems. So in the future, we can see the information being delivered right into the truck. Imagine as someone's hours of service are ticking down, they can get an alert that there are truck parking spots available ahead, or the system can offer to reroute them to an available facility, and maybe even reserve a spot ahead for them. So just remember, this is an evolutionary process. Where we are at today is not final state. There's still a lot of ways to connect this information from other in-cab systems.
So another interesting concept around mobility is the smart port distribution, intermodal kind of part of transportation. So when we talk about a connected truck network, we're actually talking about a connected transportation network. One of the first points for many a load is one of the facilities, as you see on this slide. Improving gate function, inventory management is a constant issue for all of these facilities. They have drivers coming in, they have drivers coming out, they have billions of dollars of goods that are going through their facilities, and they need to account for all of them. So it's a security issue. The right driver has to be there at the right time, in the right window to pick up the right load. They have to exit the yard at the right time because they've got new loads coming in. And all of this within, a growing demand. Quite typically on the same size footprint. You often don't have more footprint that you can use. So right now we're involved in a pilot to expedite both in-gate and out-gate technologies in intermodal yards, utilizing a combination of hardware lane controls, cloud-based inventory management, and in-cab driver messaging. Existing technologies still face a lot of hurdles. So the concept of expediting in-gates and out-gates is not a new concept. This has been an evolutionary growth for the last 30 years, all the way from, some guy at a booth with a clipboard pushing down on a control that kind of comes in and up to some of the more, to some of the advanced reader technologies that you have nowadays, which are quite effective and have done a great job in scaling and securing facilities and yards. These sorts existing technologies, though, the biggest thing that they lack is that real-time driver interaction. So the real-time driver interaction, as you can see from several of the other cases here, really does lead to better driver behavior, because ultimately there is a driver that's either picking something up or dropping something off. And that driver has to make good choices. They have to be in the right window at the right time. They have to know what lot, row spot that they're dropping off, where they're picking up. They often do things to expedite their day and drop off in a right or wrong location. So there's inventory management once you're within the yard. And the pilot program that we're dealing with is to basically remove most of the kiosk interactions and kind of transfer that load using existing back-end cloud-based information with in-cab driver directions and instructions to really enhance the volume that a yard can deal with while maintaining the security and safety that they need today. These sorts of solutions, so that's the pilots at an intermodal facility, but really this kind of technology relates well to any kind of controlled yard that has the same sorts of impediments for security and for wanting to scale out on the same size footprint. These solutions require a fair amount of data and process interaction. Some cases, there are open standards that make it easier. In some of the other cases, there's legacy or proprietary interfaces. Whenever we're approaching a solution and we're working with partners, we always try and drive towards open standards, which makes the ongoing evolution of these technologies a lot smoother for everyone. So we've done a bit of a survey of some of the solutions that we're involved in. The solutions we're involved in involve in-cab technologies connected to roadside technologies, agencies, and this is just a slide that fictitiously has the day in the life of a connected truck. If you take the some of the examples that we put together, at some point a load is picked up. At some point later, they may go past an inspection site. They may have to pull into a weigh station. At some point, they'll need to park if they're taking a load for more than a day. There's real-time monitoring, all sorts of other sorts of technologies you've seen in connected trucks, smart tires, smart braking, steering systems, all the maintenance information that's flowing in. Maybe there's a maintenance check that needs to be done as you approach a smart city, and a booking's been made for you along the way, and then ultimately you're dropping something off. All of these things require that same level of integration, real-time predictive analytics, smart cities, those kind of the future-facing pieces that we're all working towards. But they all rely upon this kind of the eventuality, the real benefit will come about from a broader adoption of open technologies, open sharing of information, all while maintaining data rights and privacy. So it's an interesting future. So on the next slide, when we talk about interesting futures, the interesting future that everyone loves to talk about is autonomous trucking. Is autonomous trucking going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We can probably put about 25 or 30 of us in a room together and have about 25 or 30 different opinions. One of the interesting things, I was at a trade show recently, and I did talk to someone, a particular vendor who's working on autonomous trucks. Autonomous trucks, as we all know, have a lot of technology and a lot of regulatory hurdles to go through. But they have some very promising productivity gains that we're all after. So what we did is, kind of just briefly talk to them about kind of our space, the space that we're in, the space that we just shared with you. And we talked about an autonomous truck approaching a weigh station. So it was something that person had, but you're carrying a load down an interstate, and each state still has regulation. They still have safety. They still have enforcement. So how does that autonomous truck interact with enforcement? How does that autonomous truck who's driving over that weigh in motion scale, what tells them to pull in? How do they pull in? What happens when you have a temporary location, like a roadside pullout area, that's been opened up by officers and an autonomous truck drives by? How does the officer pull it in? What if a safety sensor says that something's wrong with an autonomous truck, or an officer driving by or someone from the public driving by sees something wrong? Who do they talk to? How do they get connected? So we had an interesting talk about just this particular aspect. There are a lot of solutions. Cbsl has a working body that's looking at some of these things. So we encourage everyone to keep our eyes out for any kind of regulation that comes down. And ultimately in the autonomous truck realm, we may or may not realize a fully autonomous future. The productivity gains obtained along the way, alongside the costs to automate, will ultimately inform us over time, but we're certainly continue to experiment, innovate, and work together with those providers. And it looks pretty interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where it ultimately lands.
So this is the lens of the connected truck that we're looking through, and it's not necessarily a comprehensive view of what is out there today. And there are a number of vendors and manufacturers out there coming up with innovative ways of capturing pertinent vehicle information and relaying it to the driver of the fleet. In this example here, it's tire pressure monitoring systems, or the advent of the smart tire. But what does this mean to possibly other sensors on the vehicle or to the larger world outside of the vehicle? On top of this, agencies are developing advanced traveler information systems, and 511 apps. It's just not possible for all these different manufacturers and vendors to be having one-on-one conversations with all these different agencies and regulators and vice versa. So there's no one vendor or platform that integrates all this information, either from the vehicle or integrated with the roadside information and disseminating it consistently back to the vehicle. So this is where we're uniquely positioned to bridge that gap as we are working side by side with these transportation agencies as they're developing policies going forward around connected vehicle, as they are testing new technology on roadside, and how we are integrated on the vehicle by being integrated on that messaging platform of choice in cab and being able to relay that real-time pertinent information to the driver. So just to wrap it up, we hope you found today's webinar interesting and insightful, and possibly a bit educational. We also hope you found our perspective to be unique, and perhaps we've gotten your wheels turning in some new areas where they weren't turning before. The connected truck space is an area that we are deeply interested in, and it forms the core of our market approach and technology roadmap. So we love talking about the subject and sharing our insights, and always we welcome others to do the same. So we would love to hear what technologies you are considering, what policy and regulatory concerns you might be grappling with, and welcome the opportunity to discuss this topic with you further. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Marianne for some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you both for sharing your perspectives. As I mentioned, at this point, we'll go ahead and take some questions from the audience. So if you have not already submitted those, please type those into the Q&A section. First question, how is connectivity different from telematics in commercial vehicles?
Charles, I'll let you answer that one.
Okay, so it was kind of broken up, but I understand the question to be, how is connectivity different than telematics in the commercial vehicle world?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's not, so to speak. I think connectivity is a broader term than telematics. Telematics is probably a more focused or specific use of connectivity technology. So connectivity just means you're connected to something. And in our sense, when we're talking about connectivity, we're talking about not just, say, the in-cab OBC to the back-end telematics platform back-end. We're talking about connectivity from that cloud to another cloud, to our cloud, to the roadside sensors, up to several cloud environments, and then bringing all of that cloud information into, a single view, which could come from disparate data sources. So while the underlying technology of how you connect to things is probably all of the same, and quite frankly, we make use of and integrate with many telematics providers. When we talk about technology, we're really talking about the full span of everything from the sensors that Brian alluded to the telematics providers, to other service providers.
Great. And next question, does autonomous mean driverless?
Yeah, so I can probably speak to that one. The autonomous vehicle or driverless vehicle world, has 6 different levels of what they consider how autonomous vehicle is. A fully autonomous vehicle or a level 6 vehicle does mean fully automated, but that doesn't necessarily mean driverless. So in conversations with a lot of the public safety agencies we talk to, they really envision a driverless truck to still require a driver in the cab of the vehicle. And we would expect that although a truck, even a truck today, could drive without any driver intervention, on a highway, that it would still be a driver who takes it through metropolitan areas, who has to take it into the facilities. The driver is still required to sign off on loads, still interact with shippers and receivers, and still be responsible for understanding regulations and compliance from state to state as the vehicle is moving.
Okay, great. And next question, how are you testing your vision systems to ensure that they're accurate in all situations?
Yeah, so we're constantly working and improving our systems, iterating on next generation versions of our imaging systems. We build a number of algorithms into our systems to help improve the overall performance and reliability of these devices. As an example, you can cross-reference data from one system with another system. So something like, say, a license plate reader, for instance, with a US DOT reader, and then use back-end data sources to improve the accuracy. So a US DOT reader by itself could have low 90% accuracy. A license plate reader could have a high 80% accuracy. But when you start cross-referencing the two of them, the data from both of them, you can get your accuracy up well above 98%.
Okay, great. Next question, has Drivewyze researched or interfaced with ELD data at all?
Yeah, I can answer that. So yes, and so when we say data in our system is provided voluntarily by those who choose to participate. So basically, if you choose to become a customer, you open up a certain amount of data, and that data is relevant to the product or solution that we're offering. So yes, our primary platform of integration for in-cab technologies is AOBRDs and ELDs. And when I'm using the word ELD, I'm talking about something following the current ELD mandate, the thing that's going live, the middle of next month. So we've traditionally integrated with AOBRD information, that's vehicle information, driver information, carrier information. And we've done the same thing with ELD. And some of the solutions require more of that information, and some of it require less of that information.
Okay, perfect. Next question, is there a level of autonomy required for any of these connectivity features?
No.
All right.
There's no level of autonomy required. I think it's going to be interesting. I think different levels of autonomy are something that will go hand in hand with overall improvements in productivity.
Okay, perfect. And next, how does connected truck technology affect costs for fleet? Is that something you
I couldn't hear the question. You broke up.
Yeah. How does connected truck technology affect costs for fleet?
So the primary motivator for participating in connected truck solutions is cost savings. So basically, what we need to do with all the solutions that we provide is prove to a fleet that there are cost reductions involved. And that can be anything from, the changeover from, it's typically the changeover from existing ways of doing business to the new way of doing business. In our way station bypass product, for instance, one of the things that we do is we offer basically what we call analytics. We run in a headless mode for a period of time, so no driver interaction is required. The product's already pre-deployed on the unit, so there's typically no deployment required either. And we run for 15 to 30 days in a headless mode, and we share the ROI information. If you participate in this program, these are the cost savings you would have had. It's a very straightforward approach. It's worked very well. It moves basically from to a product to a product proving itself out, and then ultimately it's proven. Yeah, I'll stop talking.
Great. All right, and kind of
if you have certainly answer. Sure.
Can the way station see if the driver did the VIR and the hours the driver has left for the day? Does the unit send that information to the way station?
No. So vehicle inspection reports or pre-trip reports are not transmitted, and they're not used in pre-screening programs today. Neither are the hours of service. As of today, the ELD mandate requires the transmittal of hours of service to be done or initiated by the driver upon request by a commercial vehicle enforcement officer. Drivewyze is not integrated with that, either on the Telematics device or on the back end as of today. Now, the proof of concept that we're doing with the pilot for expedited level 3s or for level 8, those are outside of the current way station bypass offering that we have. So if you're subscribed to Drivewyze for way station pre-clearance, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden your hours of service is going to be transmitted. It's a closed pilot that we're doing with a number of carriers in a number of states just to kind of prove out the concept. And it's voluntarily offering the hours of service information, again, though, by the driver opting into that particular program.
Okay, perfect. And we have had a few questions about whether people listening in will receive a copy of the presentation. The answer to that is yes. Within 24 hours, we will be sending a link to both the presentation itself as well as a recording of this webinar. So you will receive that in the email inbox for the email that you use to register for the webinar. Moving on, is there a possibility or plan for Drivewyze and government agencies to share data collected with the carrier, including things like tire pressure, speed, inspection results, etc.?
So, is there a plan? Not per se. There is no plan, but I definitely see that with all the solutions we've been developing, that's kind of how they're moving forward. It's basically increasing data sharing. And it's kind of Brian alluded to with the previous answer was like voluntarily sharing data leads to efficiency gains, so therefore you voluntarily share that data. And that's really how these programs come together. They come together by first proving out that if people voluntarily share data that they have and you combine that data, that you lead to an efficiency or productivity gain, a safety gain, a security gain of some kind. So definitely those sorts of things will happen. They already have in other kinds of solutions, and they will continue to happen as you prove that participating. And of course you want to prove that you can do that safely, securely, with privacy in mind.
Great. And have there been any discussions or plans made to add toll payment to the integrated package?
If that's a Drivewyze specific question, the answer is yes. So yeah, and certainly if people have those kind of pointed questions, they can certainly look me up and shoot a question my way. But definitely, from a real-time connected GPS location-based service provider that we are, we've definitely looked quite quite hard at providing kind of evolutionary approaches to tolling, and you know, we're involved in a couple of small research projects to look at everything from toll fraud prevention to ultimately toll payment.
All right, perfect. And can you share any details about the components that will be included in the level 8 inspection?
Yeah, I can talk to that one. So again, the concept of level 8 will be the vehicle is on a main line traveling at highway speeds, and something will trigger level 8 inspection on that vehicle. So that transmission of information will include a descriptive location of where the vehicle is, including its GPS coordinates, validation of who is operating the vehicle, including their driver's license class, endorsements, status of the license. Does that driver have a valid ME certificate and SPE certificate? And what's the driver's current duty status? What is the hours of service compliance? What is the US DOT or in Canada the NSC number? What's the power unit registration? Where is its operating authority? UCR compliance, and any federal out of service orders.
Yeah, the definition is it's called a level 8 inspection, and CBSA has a definition on their website that includes this information.
All right, perfect. Next question says, how are you working to adapt or improve driver or fleet user friendliness? A lot of this sounds really technical.
The underlying how is very technical, and yeah, you're right. We probably tend to focus a lot on that. That's the meat of the work and the kind of the meat of how everything gets put together. But as you heard in a few of them, it's like I mentioned the word driver over and over again, and ultimately the person that is making the safe, that is hopefully making the safe, is responsible for making safe and efficient transportation happen, is a driver pulling a load. So we work with our technology providers who have provided in-cab technologies like the ELDs themselves. We work with, we have quite a few reference customers that we use. And as a product team, we work on everything from user experience surveys, user design, and beta testing with those, particularly with drivers, to determine what are the things that primarily impact their user experience as part of kind of our solutioning. So there's lots of user feedback that's incorporated into it, and a strong focus on making our solution integrate with the partner's overall user experience. That's why we provided an SDK. That's why we want that tight, seamless integration, because we want a very smooth driver experience.
Okay, great.
Ultimately, drivers will tell you what they will use and what they will not use. And if you don't provide something that's easy to use, they will just not use it. As a few of us application folks in the past have found out.
Yeah, great point there for sure. Next, how are you incorporating interoperability between different states, and how are different states' DOTs responding to that?
Yeah, one of the unique value propositions of Drivewyze, at least the Drivewyze pre-clearance, is the program and the systems itself are hardware agnostic. So meaning that we're not reliant on any roadside polls or readers to do the transmission and communication with the vehicles themselves. On the back end, we've developed all of our integration to be hardware agnostic, so we integrate with not only sensors provided by intelligent imaging systems, but by many of the other third-party vendors that do things like camera systems or roadside sensors, and all of that work is done on the back end by our team. The DOTs are very favorable. I mean, I think you just look at the expansion of the Drivewyze network since we launched in 2012. The adoption on the agency side has been fantastic because of the fact that we are able to integrate with any third-party sensors or any back-end data systems that the agency may want to connect us to. So we don't have any kind of hardware requirements or vendor lock when it comes to those systems or infrastructure that are deployed by the states.
Okay, great. And next question, we've got time, I believe, for a couple more. How are you incorporating different height restrictions in routing the trucks to use an efficient, safe route?
Yeah.
So we, okay, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to say we don't do routing, but Charles, I mean, maybe you speak to it more from the product side.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer. Our solutions, we don't do routing. So we integrate with platforms that obviously have truck safe routing on them. The one safety alert that we do have, low bridge deck notifications. That's a curated data set, and really we would hope that any driver using truck safe nav never encounters one of these notifications. But we do know that sometimes drivers don't use their nav, sometimes they're new to an area, and sometimes they end up on an unsafe road. So we want to make sure that we cover them being on an unsafe road.
Great, and it looks like we've got one more here. In your presentation, you mentioned the possibility of people getting involved in organizations that are working with this technology. What are some ways that people that are listening in might be able to do that?
So from the agency perspective, there's a couple. If you're looking at staying in touch with what's happening in the compliance aspect, you could get involved with CBSA. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance is made up of not only public safety agencies but also industry representatives. So if your fleet is not currently participating in those meetings, I would encourage you to check that out. A lot of industry members sit on standing committees and help drive some of these policies and decisions being made around the compliance side. Charles, anything from the industry on the product side?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we do. One is obviously we've integrated with a range of telematics providers, and participate and share information in webinars like this. So I would encourage you to look for webinars like this. There's lots of them. Take a bit of a survey of not just the telematics provider that you use today, but listen to a few different ones, and look for the trends in the messaging. There is no there's no one place I would direct anyone to. I would just encourage you to kind of listen to a range of topics, and then kind of look for the common threads.
All right.
It's going to continue to evolve. So, every month, it's not wasted time listening, because it's a continuous evolution.
Excellent. All right, everyone, that is all that we have for today. I want to thank everyone who's listening in for taking the time to be here with us this afternoon. Thank you to Drivewyze for partnering with us on today's presentation, and thank you again to Brian and Charles for sharing your insights with us today as well. We appreciate you being here and hope you'll join us for another webinar again soon. Take care.